Okay, hello, my name is Sam, my pronouns are they, them, and welcome back to my office. So, the trend has been going around lately of doing your 10 before the end, and I should be planning out my 10 before the end in a strategic way to complete the rest of my goals for the year. But you know what? I have decided to just go a little bit crazy and do what I want, because the goals that I made in January of 2023, what are those even? Who even cares anymore? I don't care anymore. So that's fine. Winter is upon us. Winter is my favorite season of the year. I love winter. So when winter comes around, I tend to feel a little bit more alive and a little bit more in tuned with myself, honestly. So I tend to read a lot more fantasy. So my 10 before the end, which is right here, those are my 10 books. You might look at them and say, wow, that's pretty ambitious. But for me in the winter, it's not. For me in the summer, it would be an unattainable goal. But for me in the winter, we're good to go. With that, why don't we just kind of crack into it? Okay, so these are not in any particular order except for the final one. The final one is my number one most excited for book. That is the only one that has like a specific place of honor in this whole lineup. Everything else is pretty much equal. So let's start with a brand new release that just came out a couple days ago, which my lovely partner pre-ordered for me because I really wanted the pre-order gift. And it is I'm Engaged to Mothman by Paige Lavoie. Look at how stinking cute. Now, if you weren't aware, I read I'm in Love with Mothman by Paige Lavoie earlier this year. I think it was like in February or March. I think I did a review for it. So the first book in this series, I'm in Love with Mothman, is about an influencer from Florida who decides that she wants to live her cottagecore life. She is burnt out from being an influencer. She's been doing it for her entire life. Her mom was like a mommy blogger or whatever. So she needs a break. She moves to a cabin in the woods and she does stupid influencer shit. She climbs into a tree in a very pretty outfit despite being off social media to read a book in the tree in her very pretty outfit. She doesn't think about how she's going to get down. Falls out of the tree, saved by Mothman. And from there, their romance begins. It was very cute. It was very sweet. It was very fun to get through. I read it within a day. I really enjoyed myself. It had I don't remember if the main character was bi or pansexual, but had a queer main character. It had Mothman. The two main side characters were lesbians who ran a famous goat Instagram. It was all around like just a fun little like queer sweet time. So, I'm Engaged to Mothman is the sequel, and at this point it is Heather and Moth. They end up transporting into Moth's world where he is actually a prince and he was banished. So this is the story of them going back to his world and her desperately trying to impress his parents. So we have switched over from the cottagecore vibe over to the royal core vibe, and I just think that's such a cute and fun way to transition out from your first book to your second book. I'm super excited to get started with this again. Book 2 is actually another continuation of a series. It is Iris Kelly Doesn't Date by Ashley Herring Blake. This is the third book in the Bright Falls trilogy. The first one was Delilah Green Doesn't Care, and the second one was Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail. I really loved both of those books. This is a whole sapphic trilogy. This one stars Iris Kelly, who is the third person in the friend group. For Iris, she is not into romance like that. She is not a big fan of commitment. She just kind of likes to do her thing, ride her vibe, you know, one night stands forever kind of vibe. But she is a romance author, and she does have a big deadline coming up, but she's completely out of inspiration. So she does what a lot of us do, and she decides to avoid it. And she tries out for a play, like a queer version of Much Ado About Nothing, where she runs into one of her one-night stands, and they end up fake dating. That sounds so cute. That sounds so fun. I'm so excited to get into this. The third book on my 10 Before the End is actually Providence Girls by Morgan Dante. So, I have been plagued by Morgan Dante on my TikTok for some reason. I don't know why. TikTok has decided that Morgan Dante is supposed to be my all-time favorite author. I don't really have anything to say about that so far. I'm not mad about it in any capacity. I did read one of their books, which was fine. I don't even remember what it was called, but it was like a vampire one. It was like a polyamorous queer vampire book, which wasn't for me. If you don't know, I don't like vampires. I struggle greatly with vampires. But this one is sapphic mermaids. So I don't really know all that much about specifically what this is about. I know that this is set in, like, I think old school Providence, a woman running away from Massachusetts. But all I really know are sapphic mermaids. And what else do I need to know? Now, the next book that I have is Queen of the Conquered by Kacen Callender. This book has been on my shelves, God, probably since 2019, and I have yet to pick it up. It is a Caribbean-inspired fantasy focused on a world fighting colonial oppression. And I feel like I'm ready to tackle it now. I feel like I'm in the mood for fantasy. I'm in the mood for things that weigh a little bit heavier. I'm kind of expecting to fall in love with it from the things that I remember hearing back in like 2020. I'm just kind of excited to pick it up. It's supposed to be like a dark fantasy. It's supposed to be really good. And I know that it is a series, so I'm kind of excited to pick this up. And if I really like this, then I definitely will continue on with the series. Oh, it's a duology. I love that. I love a fantasy duology. I just think it's going to be amazing. And I have not picked up a Caribbean-inspired book in so long. So this is going to be amazing. This is going to be something different and something really riveting. The next one is a really chunky one, and it is Harrow the Ninth by Tamsyn Muir. So I finally tackled Gideon the Ninth earlier this year, after putting it off for like over a year, because I was really nervous with the concept of like the sci-fi aspect of it. I'm not a big sci-fi reader. It's just not my vibe. But I learned that it's not really, like, it is sci-fi, but I feel like it's doing the story an injustice to focus on the sci-fi aspect of it, and it really should be described as more of a sapphic murder mystery, in my opinion. Like, yeah, it's a sci-fi setting, but the murder mystery aspect of it is so much stronger and so much more important in my eyes, and I really loved it. So I am so ready to dive into Harrow the Ninth and to see what happens with her and Gideon at this point. I'm not going to give spoilers at what happened at the end of Gideon the Ninth, but big things happened and I must know what comes next. So I can then continue on with the series, because I think there are 2 more books released after this. There might be a 3rd or 4th one coming out soon. I don't know. There are more to read, so I have to get going. So my next one is The 100,000 Kingdoms by N.K. Jemisin. Do I know anything about this? No. No, I do not. I have no idea what this is about. But it is mine. I own it. I'm super excited to own it. N.K. Jemisin is one of my all-time favorite authors for the Broken Earth trilogy. I'm obsessed with it. I love it. it is everything to me. So I really want to get into her backlist. And I was debating going between like this series or starting next with her urban fantasy series. And I felt like this one sounded a little bit safer for my tastes. This seems more like a classic fantasy in terms of like setting. I don't really know what it's about. But I feel a lot of anxiety around urban fantasy. Urban fantasy is not really something that I tend to lean towards. So I wanted to start with something that sounded like a little bit more, something a little closer to the Broken Earth trilogy to get into her backlist instead of going in like the whole opposite direction. So I can't tell you what this is about, but I can tell you that I am obsessed with her as an author. She is the most amazing writer, and I am so excited to dive into her backlist to get up to date with all of the beautiful things that she has written. Okay, my next one was on my October TBR, and I didn't get to it, but I'm still really, really excited about it, and it is The Spirit Bares Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White. I've talked about this book quite a few times, and I read Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White earlier this year, and I liked it, but I acknowledged that it wasn't really for me. It was a book that better fit my partner. She is much better with body horror and gore to that variety. That is not something that I am into. I do not like gore. I do not like body horror. It's just not for me. So this one is supposed to be much more my vibe. I have a feeling that this is the one for me. So this is about a trans autistic main character set in Victorian England, like a different version of Victorian England, but you know. And it focuses mostly on ghosts. So this Victorian England is run by mediums. So I believe that our main character is like fleeing an arranged marriage or attempting to. And that's kind of what this whole thing is about. So, ghosts, transness, autistic, everything. Everything I could have asked for. So, I feel it in my heart of hearts that this is going to be the one for me. Okay, we're starting to get down to the end. And the next one is The Library of Fates by Aditi Khorana. So, I have had this book on my shelves for years now. I believe this came out in 2017, and I bought it around the time that it came out because, honestly, this was just a cover buy. Look at it. Look at how stunning this is. This is just like the most beautiful cover, and I was just completely enthralled with it the second I saw it at the bookstore. So I, of course, had to grab it. And since it's from 2017, of course this is a YA fantasy. So I'm not entirely sure what this is about. I believe that this involves gods and a princess who is desperate to save her kingdom. And she kind of gets rejected by the gods. And they plan to like ravage her entire kingdom. And she goes on, I believe, a quest to warn everyone. But I think some things happen and maybe things don't go to plan. That's all I really have for it. But look at how pretty it is. This cover just makes me more interested than I think that I have ever been in a book for some reason. For some reason, this book really, like, the cover speaks to me in a way that covers don't normally speak to me. But this is, like, it does things for my brain. I don't know what. But I'm very excited to finally tackle it and say I've read it so that I can like turn it out on my shelves and show the world how beautiful this is. Second to last book. This one is also on my Native Visibility TBR for this month. And it is To Shape a Dragon's Breath by Moniquill Blackgoose. So this is something that I don't know a lot about. I was recommended this. I think I was looking up like queer indigenous books for the Native Visibility TBR because I really wanted to kind of stick to a lot of queer books, I saw this and I was like, dragons. Dragons are going on. I'm really interested in dragons. And I know that Iron Flame just came out by Rebecca Yarros, and I'm choosing not to read that book, so I found a different dragon book. I think this one is supposed to be about a dragon academy run by colonizers. That's all I've really got about it. I do know that it is queer, so that's really, really, really exciting for me. I'm trying to honestly read mostly queer books at this point, just because it brings me a lot of joy. And I find that a lot of non-queer books, they don't hit the spot for me like I want them to. So I am so excited for this. I am hoping that it gives me everything that my heart could ever desire. You know, I'm hoping that it gives me a great world, interesting, like, content with dragons, and maybe a little queer romance. Maybe a little something good to tackle, to feel good about. So I'm super excited for this. I did buy this off Pango Books, and it's gonna be amazing. I will be doing like a full video on this, annotating it, talking about it, going in depth with this. So stay on the lookout for this. My final book that stands at the number one spot of I'm most excited about. As you can see right now, it is already tabbed to absolute hell and back. So obviously this is a reread for me. It is Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers. This thing is decimated, it is tabbed, it is loved, it is cherished. I can confidently say that Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers is my number one favorite book of all time. I have never felt confident enough to say something like that about a book until this book. So I loved everything about it. I thought it was perfect. I still think it's perfect. I take something new out of it every single time. So this is about Grace Porter. She is a Black woman who is the only Black woman in her PhD program to be, I believe it's astronomy. I don't believe it's astrophysics. I believe it's astronomy. But she celebrates getting her PhD by going to Vegas on a girls' trip where she gets blackout drunk and gets married. Now, this was always marketed as a romance. It is not, like, the romance is not the most important part of this. This book speaks to my soul because of the way that it talks about, like, education, and how you view yourself in an education system, and how after, like, basing your entire self-worth and, like, dedicating yourself to school for your entire life, how they just toss you out into the world and say, here, there you go, and you're supposed to just be fine, you're supposed to know what to do, you're supposed to feel confident, you're supposed to have it together, when it's really not that simple. This book just does everything for me. The love interest, Yuki, is amazing. The found family aspects are to die for, and Grace Porter as a main character, I'm tearing up just thinking about Grace Porter as a main character. She is everything to me. This will be my 4th reread of this book, and I just can't help myself. I have to. I cannot help myself. So, eventually I will get another copy of this because, you know what, I'm not going to stop tapping this. I'm just going to keep writing in it and destroying it and expressing my love between the pages because this is everything to me. And my holiday wish this year is for Morgan Rogers to put out another book. Please, for the love of God, I will do anything. So, this is number 1 in my heart, forever and always, on this list, everywhere. And that is where we are at for my 10 before the end. I hope that everyone is kind of planning out their end of year reading plans and feeling comfy cozy with the winter season fast approaching, especially for us in like the cold weather areas. I'm up in Maine. It gets a little bit brutal sometimes. But there is nothing better than just sitting on your couch with a nice heated blanket and reading all throughout the winter. So, if anyone has any other fantasy recommendations that you think that I should be looking into for this nice cozy winter season, I still have not even started thinking about my plans for 2024. So I'm gonna have to start doing that soon. Damn. So I hope y'all enjoyed this. I will see y'all next time for a video regarding To Shape a Dragon's Breath. I hope everyone's having a great day, and I'll see y'all next time.